Discover the incredible journey of a poor Japanese boy who transformed his life and founded Honda in the heart of Los Angeles. Surrounded by the remnants of war and a city divided by prejudice, lived a boy named Hiroshi. At just 11, he carried dreams bigger than the towering palm trees that swayed outside his window. His family, Japanese immigrants seeking a better life in the shadow of adversity, worked hard to build their American dream. While Hiroshi watched his father toil as a mechanic, the grease of labor staining his hands and the weight of hardship heavy in his voice. The whispers of disdain from onlookers turned Hiroshi's spirit into a burning ember, an ember that threatened to erupt into a flame of ambition. Hiroshi's heart raced whenever he stepped into the local auto repair shop. The scent of motor oil and the roar of engines ignited a fire in his soul. He spent hours sweeping floors, dreaming as he watched the older mechanics effortlessly transform old, rusted metal into masterpieces. Each turn of a wrench was a note in the symphony of his newfound passion. He longed to craft the perfect motorcycle, one that would embody the thrill and freedom that echoed in the streets. But it wasn't just a motorcycle he wanted. It was respect. Every day at school was a battle. The boys would snicker, calling him names like Jap and poking fun at his last name. But with each taunt, Hiroshi felt a surge of determination. He remembered his father's quiet dignity, how he held his head high despite the stares. He wanted to be someone, a source of pride for his parents. One afternoon, as the sun bathed the streets in golden light, Hiroshi's closest friend, Kenji, turned on him. In an attempt to fit in with the other boys, Kenji betrayed Hiroshi, stripping him of the little trust he had. The laughter that rang out around him pierced Hiroshi's heart, forcing tears to his eyes. It felt as if the world had crashed down, burying him beneath layers of shame and anger. But in that moment of despair, a fierce resolve ignited. How could he let their ignorance define who he was? Leaning into the very values his family instilled in him, hard work, resilience, and respect, Hiroshi stood tall, even if his heart raced with uncertainty. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The moment of truth arrived when Hiroshi faced a panel of local business owners, his heart pounding against his chest like a wild drum. With his motorcycle dream clutched tightly in his hands, he pitched his vision passionately. The air thickened with tension as he poured his heart into every word. Could he really be someone? Could he rise above the whispers that haunted him? As the last note of his speech faded, silence enveloped the room, and Hiroshi stood there, trembling in the spotlight of uncertainty. Would they see the fire within him? The question hung in the air, waiting to be answered. The silence stretched on, thick and heavy, as Hiroshi's heart raced. Each tick of the clock echoed like a countdown to an uncertain future. The panel members exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. For a moment, Hiroshi felt like he was suspended in time, caught between hope and despair. Finally, one of the older men, his face grizzled with time and experience, leaned forward. "You're passionate," he said slowly, choosing each word with care. "But passion alone won't build a business. What's your plan? How will you turn this dream into reality?" The question hung in the air like a lifeline thrown to a drowning swimmer. Hiroshi swallowed hard. This was his moment, and he had to carve out a response from the heart of his turmoil. "I'll start small," he said, his voice gaining strength. "I want to create motorcycles that anyone can afford, because I know how it feels to struggle. I'll make something that brings joy and freedom, a way for people to escape. I'll learn from the best, improve myself every day." His words flowed faster now, fueled by the very fire that ignited his dreams. The panelists nodded, some with skepticism, but one or two began to lean in, intrigued by the boy who dared to stand before them. Hiroshi could feel their interest, and with each shared glance, a flicker of hope burst within him. After what felt like an eternity, the grizzled man spoke again. Your passion is clear, but we need more than dreams. You'll need backing, mentorship, and a lot of hard work. Are you willing to learn, to take criticism and grow? Yes, Hiroshi exclaimed, his eyes glistening with determination. I won tea back down. I'll work harder than anyone. I'll do whatever it takes. A few murmurs ran through the room, some in agreement, others questioning. The atmosphere changed slightly. Hiroshi sensed it, optimism surging through his veins like gasoline pouring into an engine. Finally, the chairwoman, a dignified woman with piercing eyes, spoke. Very well, Hiroshi. We're willing to give you a chance. You'll have our support to create a prototype. But remember, this is just the beginning. The road will be tough. Relief flooded over him, making his knees weak. Thank you. Thank you so much. He struggled to hold back tears of joy. But as encouraging words filled the air, another thought crept into his mind. The future clutched in his hands felt both exhilarating and terrifying. There was so much ahead of him. What if he failed? Would the betrayal from Kenji haunt him again? Could he really handle the weight of expectations? Hiroshi left the meeting feeling like he was on the precipice of something great. Yet doubt still pricked at his resolve. As he walked down the street, the city buzzed with life around him. But inside, his heart raced with anxiety. With every step, he could feel the world watching, waiting to see if he would rise or fall. Just then, an image of his father's hands, worn but strong, crossed his mind. The image gave him strength. If his father could endure so much, surely he could fight for this dream. But little did he know, outside forces were already beginning to stir, ready to challenge everything he just worked so hard to achieve. The sun dipped low as Hiroshi made his way home, casting long shadows along the bustling streets. He felt buoyant but weighed down by the mountain of expectations he'd just stepped into. The whispers of fellow pedestrians filled the air, their voices a mix of excitement and indifference. He maneuvered through the crowd, conscious of the dreams he now needed to chase. Deep down, Hiroshi knew he wouldn't just be idling in dreams anymore. This was real and he needed a plan. His mind raced with thoughts of the prototype he'd promised to create. What would it look like? Who would help him along the way? He felt the mounting pressure of reality settling on his shoulders. Yet the thought of his father's worn hands gave him courage. He envisioned each piece coming to life in his mind. That evening, he sat down with a sketchbook, pencil hovering above the page. He could draft ideas for the design, but the practicalities loomed like dark clouds. Where would he get the funds? He thought of reaching out to his mother for assistance. But then he remembered his father's parting words, never rely on anyone but yourself. That echoed through him, igniting his resolve. After several attempts, his pencil finally began to move, creating shapes that blended into ideas, sleek curves, bright colors, innovative features. Each stroke was a reflection of his passion and the resistance he'd faced. Yet, no matter how many sketches he made, a voice in the back of his mind kept insisting, what if it's not enough? The following day, at a local cafe, he sipped coffee amidst the early morning bustle, eager to research and learn. Hiroshi scrolled through articles on motorcycle production, marketing strategies, and the mechanics of design. The more he learned, the more questions popped into his mind. Excuse me. A voice interrupted his concentration. A young woman stood beside him, vibrant and energetic. I couldn't help but notice you're sketching motorcycles. Are you an artist? Hiroshi hesitated, then smiled shyly. I'm working on a design for a motorcycle. It's a part of a project I'm developing. Her eyes lit up with curiosity. That sounds incredible. Amiko, she said, extending her hand. Are you looking for help with marketing or design? The way she leaned closer sparked something inside him. Actually, yes. I want to create something for everyone. He hesitated, the weight of his ambitions flashing before him. But I'm afraid I might not be good enough. Aiko smiled warmly, a reassuring glimmer in her eyes. Every great idea starts with fear and uncertainty. It's what you do with those feelings that counts. We should work together. I have connections and know a few things about startups. Hiroshi's heart raced. Here was a chance. Someone willing to share the struggle with him. They exchanged ideas, and the energy hummed around them, filling the cafe with their hopes. Each word felt like a step toward a life he had only dared to imagine. Yet, as he left that day, a nagging thought clawed at him again. What if he trusted her only to be let down? Would she be another person to betray him like Kenji? He took a deep breath, allowing himself a moment to bask in the vulnerability of new beginnings. He didn't want to miss this opportunity, but fear was a constant companion now. With a mix of excitement and trepidation, he took out his phone and sent a message to Aiko. Let us meet tomorrow. I want to take this seriously. Little did he know, shadows lingered close, waiting to reshape his path. Would Aiko be the partner he needed, or the turn that could unravel all his plans? The next morning, Hiroshi awoke with a jolt, his heart racing. The sun poured through his window, illuminating the small room that felt both familiar and foreign, now a place of dreams, yet cluttered with doubt. His thoughts drifted to Aiko. Would today be the day everything changed? He dressed quickly, each button on his shirt feeling like a step toward his future. As he grabbed his sketchbook and headed out, the weight of uncertainty tugged at him. What if today went wrong? What if Aiko turned out to be just another illusion? He shook off the thoughts. He had to believe in this chance. At the cafe, the air was filled with the rich aroma of coffee beans blending with the soft murmur of conversations. His palms were clammy as he scanned the room, searching for Aiko. And then he spotted her, at a corner table, her hair bouncing in rhythm with her enthusiasm as she gestured animatedly to someone across from her. She caught his eye and waved, a bright smile spreading across her face. Hi, Hiroshi. Right on time, she exclaimed, her laughter infectious. He felt the tension in his shoulders ease a bit. As he took a seat, she leaned forward, eyes sparkling. So, I talked to a friend of mine last night. He is a graphic designer, and he is interested in collaborating. For the first time, he allowed himself to imagine what this could mean. Really? That is amazing. The words spilled out, filled with a mix of hope and disbelief. Aiko pulled out her phone and showed him the designs her friend had created for various types of motorcycles. They were fresh, innovative, and brought that thrilling vision Hiroshi had in his mind to life. But we need to pitch this to potential investors soon, she said, her voice turning serious. Do you think you're ready? Hiroshi's heart drummed painfully in his chest. Ready? I've never pitched anything before. What if they don't like it? She reached across the table, placing her hand over his. They will like it, because it came from you. Just remember, every big leap requires some risk. We'll practice together. We can do this. Her faith in him sent a jolt of energy through his veins. They spent hours sketching out features and ideas, building excitement as each new idea unfolded. Lost in the moment, he found himself thinking less about failure and more about the thrill of creating something that would resonate with people. By midday, they had developed a concrete plan. The essence of their design stood strong, ready to wow any investor. As he readied to leave, Hiroshi felt a surge of gratitude. Thank you for believing in me, Aiko. I wouldn't have done this on my own. Of course. We're a team now, she replied, a determined gleam in her eye. But as he walked home, a stubborn whisper crept back into his mind. Was believing in Aiko a mistake? What if she got tired of him or decided he wasn't worth the investment? The thought curled around his heart like a vine, squeezing tighter with every step. When he reached his doorstep, he paused, staring at the faded wood. This was where his journey had begun, but now it felt like a turning point. He had an idea, a partner, and a real chance to make something of himself. But as night settled in, doubt lingered in the shadows. Would his newfound courage carry him through, or was it merely a facade? As he lay in bed, he stared at the ceiling, where dreams danced above him. Could they become reality? He closed his eyes, releasing a shaky breath. The world was filled with possibilities, but one question haunted him. Would he let fear snuff out this flame before it even started to burn? The answer felt just out of reach, and tomorrow, he would have to face it. The stakes were rising, and it was now or never. The next morning felt different. Hiroshi opened his eyes to the soft light filtering through the window. But today, the sun didn't just illuminate his room. It ignited something within him. His mind raced with ideas for the pitch. He could almost see the faces of investors lighting up with interest, their nods of approval echoing in his ears. He pushed the thoughts of doubt aside as he dressed. Each piece of clothing felt like armor against the insecurities bubbling inside him. He was ready to embrace this challenge, ready to take the leap Aiko had encouraged him to make. He grabbed his sketchbook with renewed determination, its pages filled with dreams and schematics reflecting his hard work. The cafe. The atmosphere buzzed with energy. This time, Hiroshi held his head a little higher as he scanned the room for Aiko. She was already there, radiating an anticipation that matched his own. As their eyes met, she sprang up, bouncing on her heels. "Hiroshi, I can't wait to show you what I worked on last night." "Me too," he admitted, thrilled to see her excitement. He slid into the seat across from her, their early mutual anxiety replaced by an infectious enthusiasm that made the worries seem insignificant. Aiko revealed her notes, dense with strategies and points for their presentation. "We'll start with your story, Hiroshi. Your journey is powerful." She scribbled swiftly, highlighting every detail that painted his struggle and aspirations. "People connect with personal stories. They'll root for you." Hiroshi's heart fluttered. He had never thought of sharing his story like that. It wasn't just a tale of hardship. It was a testament to resilience, and maybe it was what would set them apart. "You really think they'll care?" he asked, doubt creeping back in. "They will. Trust in yourself. This is your moment." Her words were like a balm for his anxiety. He leaned in closer, fueled by her belief in him, and they began crafting their pitch together, infusing it with vibrant emotions and dreams as they practiced, laughing and refining each line. Hiroshi felt a slow transformation. Each word he spoke carried more confidence, igniting small sparks of hope in the depths of his heart. The tension that had squeezed his chest began to loosen, melting away under the warmth of Aiko's encouragement. But the closer they got to pitch day, the louder the voice of self-doubt became. Late at night, when the world was silent, Hiroshi lay awake, picturing the boardroom. Would he stutter under pressure? Would Aiko's optimism be enough to offset his insecurities? Finally, on the eve of their pitch, Hiroshi's mind churned with a mix of eagerness and fear. It felt as if he stood on that proverbial edge, peering down into a vast unknown below. He knew that stepping off could mean flight or a free fall, and he was scared. "I'm scared," he whispered to himself in the darkness, his heart racing all over again. He squeezed his eyes shut and took a deep breath. This was it, the moment he had been training for. Hiroshi pushed the doubts aside, picturing not just success, but the joy of sharing his dream. The thought of Aiko by his side gave him strength. As he drifted off, exhausted yet hopeful, one question lingered. Was he ready to dive into this new world, to make his dreams reality despite the fear holding him back? Tomorrow would bring answers, and he could only pray he was brave enough to face them. The sun peeked through the curtains, casting warm stripes across Hiroshi's bed. He sat up, rubbing the remnants of sleep from his eyes, yet the sense of anticipation coursed through him. Today was the day. The day he would step into the boardroom, reveal his dream, and unleash the story he had crafted with Aiko by his side. He could hear the soft rustle of his sketchbook, a comforting reminder of the hard work and the personal journey he had captured within those pages. With each breath, he repeated the promises he had made to himself, the promises of courage, authenticity, and belief. He dressed with purpose. Each shirt button clicked into place, solidifying his resolve. Arriving at the cafe felt different. The usual hum of chatter seemed alive, pulsating with the energy of countless stories waiting to unfold. Hiroshi spotted Aiko, already seated, a flurry of notes scattered on the table like colorful butterflies. Excitement bubbled within him as he slid into the seat across from her. "You ready for this?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with a mix of cheer and nerves. "As ready as I can be," he replied, forcing a smile, though his stomach twisted with uncertainty. Good. Just remember you're not alone. We'll do this together. Aiko's confidence soothed his fears, wrapping around him like a warm blanket. They ran through their presentation one last time. Aiko took charge, explaining each part with charisma and conviction, while Hiroshi listened, interjecting at all the right moments. It started to feel like a performance, one in which he was not only the main character but also the puppeteer of his own fate. But as the minutes ticked away, Hiroshi's self-doubt slithered back into his mind. What if the investors didn't connect? What if he forgot his lines? Images of countless scenarios played out, each darker than the last. Aiko must have sensed him slipping. Take a moment, Hiroshi, she said gently. Think about why you started this journey. Connect with that. He closed his eyes, focusing on the flicker of hard work that had carried him this far. Memories flooded in his childhood dream of building engines, the long nights in the garage, and the simplicity of tinkering with parts. It was passion. It was hope. It was his life. A soft hand on his arm brought him back. See? That's the Hiroshi I want to present to the world, Aiko urged, her voice steady. The one who never gave up. With her encouragement, something inside him shifted. The doubts didn't disappear, but they lost their grip on his spirit. He could feel a spark igniting, a flame fueled by the belief of not just himself but of Aiko's unwavering support. As the clock inched toward pitch time, they gathered their materials. Hiroshi took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the essence of possibility. This was the culmination of hope, struggle, and determination, and they were ready to face it head-on. Walking into the boardroom felt surreal. The stark white walls and polished conference table glimmered with potential. A sense of inevitability washed over him as the investors filed into their seats. Intrigued gazes locked onto them. Aiko leaned in, whispering, "It's showtime. Just be yourself." "Here goes nothing," he whispered back, heart pounding in rhythm with the moment. Then it happened. The moment everything shifted. As he opened his mouth to begin, a sudden realization struck him. This was not just a pitch. This was his truth being laid bare before the world. He felt alive, and for the first time, the fear transformed into something exhilarating. But then, just as his confidence surged, Hiroshi noticed the expressions of skepticism among the investors. A shadow of doubt flickered in their eyes. The warmth of hope threatened to cool, and Hiroshi's voice wavered. What if this was the moment everything fell apart? As he steadied himself, he felt an urgent need to embrace vulnerability, a truth far more powerful than even the best pitch. Would he have the courage to reveal it? As the tension hung heavy in the air, Hiroshi took a deep breath, wrestling with his racing heart. The investors' skeptical looks felt like ice shards puncturing through the fog of his determination. But within that swirling pit of doubt, the warmth of Aiko's belief wrapped around him like armor, nudging him to dive deeper. "We've worked really hard on this," he began, his voice steadier now. "This project, it's more than just an idea. It's a piece of my life." His eyes swept across the room, settling on each investor as if looking for a familiar face in a crowd. A murmur spread across the table. Someone scoffed, perhaps unconvinced that such personal investment could translate into a successful business venture. But Hiroshi pressed on, leaning in as though sharing a secret. "I started in my father's garage. He taught me about determination and resilience. I spent hours building engines trying to capture every little detail. It was my escape." He felt the walls around him begin to shift, as if his vulnerability was unlocking something inside their hardened exterior. Aiko nodded from the side, her eyes wide with approval. He could sense her belief radiating through him, grounding him. Hiroshi looked down at the sketches laid before them, each line a reminder of what he had built from the ground up. "Every failure taught me something," he continued, his voice rising in fervor. "Every setback was fuel for my fire. This isn't just business. It's how we're going to change lives. It's how we'll build a community." The investors shifted in their chairs, exchanging glances. He caught a hint of intrigue beginning to flicker in their eyes. He took another breath, feeling a sudden rush of courage. Today was not just about presenting a project. It was about sharing a part of himself. There's a dream behind every engine we create, every road we pave. Hiroshi let the words hang for a moment, feeling the weight of them. This is something we can share with the world, something that goes beyond profit margins. This is hope. A silence enveloped the room, and for a split second, it was as if time had stopped. The investors, once tense and skeptical, were now engaged, taking in not just the words but the passion that fueled them. Hiroshi's heart raced, a mix of fear and exhilaration galvanizing him. Then, unexpectedly, one of the investors spoke. "You're appealing to our emotions, Hiroshi," he said, his tone shifting. "But can you deliver on these promises? Can your vision hold up under pressure?" Hiroshi felt the ground shift again, a familiar feeling of doubt clawing at him. Yet instead of shrinking back, he felt the urge to respond. "This isn't just my vision anymore. It's ours. We can make this happen together." The investor raised an eyebrow, interest piqued. Hiroshi felt the energy of the room shift again, the defensiveness of the investors softening slightly. He was finally reaching them, exposing not just his dreams but their potential partnership in transforming those dreams into reality. As he finished, Hiroshi felt a wave of exhaustion wash over him, but also a glimmer of hope that lit within his chest. What if this moment marked a turning point, both for him and for the company? But then Aiko leaned in closer, whispering just for him. "You did it, Hiroshi. But remember, the hardest part is still ahead." With her words echoing in his mind, a blend of exhilaration and trepidation coursed through him. If they were to move forward, they'd have to confront the doubts lingering in the room. Would he have what it took to navigate the next steps in this unpredictable journey? With that thought, he glanced back at the investors, their eyes now wide with curiosity. What awaits next could change everything. The moment Hiroshi finished speaking, the air in the room felt different. It buzzed with possibilities, as if the very walls were leaning closer to hear more. Aiko's encouraging smile was a beacon, pushing him to keep going, to dig deeper into this shared vision. The investor who had spoken earlier, an older man with silver hair and an air of authority, leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "Let us say we buy into your passion," he said, his voice steady. "What's the plan? How do you intend to execute this?" Hiroshi could feel the weight of his expectations pressing down on him. It wasn't enough to just inspire. He had to show them that he could deliver. He took a moment to collect his thoughts, his mind racing through the plans they had painstakingly crafted together. "First, we'll start with a prototype," he explained, confidence creeping back with every word. "We'll gather a team of skilled engineers, folks who understand not just the mechanics but the heart behind what we're creating." He glanced at Aiko, her eyes reflecting both curiosity and unwavering support. "With each test, with each design iteration, we will refine our ideas, listen to feedback, make it better." The younger investors at the table nodded. Hiroshi noticed the tension easing from their faces. Each new word seemed to weave a thread of trust between them. He pressed on, fueled by the momentum of the moment. "And then, we will launch a campaign that resonates," he continued fervently. "This isn't just marketing. It's about storytelling. We want people to see themselves in this project, the dreamers, the builders. We want to transform our machines into symbols of hope." The older investor tapped his fingers thoughtfully on the table. "And what about funding? Can you secure the resources you need?" Hiroshi's heart skipped at the thought of budget meetings and late-night pitches. "Yes, we've looked into multiple channels," he replied, feeling more assured. "Crowdfunding, private investors, even partnerships. We can come together as a community. This isn't just my fight. It's ours." The room hummed with energy, and he could see the investors leaning into his vision, wrapping their minds around a future that included all of them. Suddenly, a harsh laugh broke through the growing warmth. A middle-aged woman, known to be a tough critic, shook her head slightly. "You speak of unity and hope, which sounds beautiful, Hiroshi. But what does that mean in terms of numbers? We need solid projections." He felt the air grow heavy again, vulnerability crashing over him like cold water. Numbers, ROI, profit margins, projected growth. They had all worked tirelessly on that as well, but it felt so sterile compared to the dreams he was trying to paint. "Write the numbers," he stammered, grasping for clarity. "We project a steady growth of market penetration through innovation and community building. Each vehicle will not just be a machine. It'll represent our values, potentially capturing a market that's yearning for change." Silence wrapped around the room, heavy yet thoughtful. Hiroshi could almost hear the wheels turning in their heads as they processed what he had just said. But just as hope began to spark, Aiko leaned in again, her look serious. "They'll want more than numbers, Hiroshi. They'll want to see the heart behind it." He nodded, her words igniting a fire within him. They needed to show how their project could uplift communities, bring people together not just with machinery but with real impact. "That's why I want to start within our local community," he shared, feeling a rush of determination. "We're not only creating engines, we're creating opportunities. Workshops, mentorships, that's how we inspire the next generation." Some investors exchanged glances, excitement mingling with skepticism. It was raw and real. Hiroshi knew he had ignited something. "Tell me, what's your timeline for this? How do you see it unfolding?" the older investor asked, his voice encouraging now. Hiroshi paused, mapping out the journey in his mind. Felt monumental, exhilarating. "By this time next year, I envision our first prototype launched with a community event to celebrate the progress. A moment where everyone can see what they're contributing to." The shift in the atmosphere was palpable. He could almost taste the possibility. "But what would happen if the prototype fails?" Aiko asked softly, her worry breaking through a thread of hope. Hiroshi felt a chill, a sobering reminder of the harsh reality ahead. "Then we learn. We adapt. This is a journey, not just a destination." With the room engulfed in contemplative silence again, he let that thought linger. The road ahead was filled with uncertainties. But perhaps, just perhaps, he had taken the first steps toward something incredible. And in that moment of reflection, a deep unpredictability loomed, twisting in his gut. Would they take the leap with him? As the tension swirled once more, the stakes were rising. Everything hinged on what came next. Would they embrace the vision or fold under pressure? Hiroshi felt the gravity of their silence bear down on him like an anchor. He had poured his soul into this presentation, yet doubt crept into his mind. Could he really lead them through the storm? He glanced at Aiko, who offered him an encouraging nod, a silent reminder of the dreams they shared. "Let me put it this way," he said, steeling himself. "If we fail, it won't be for lack of effort. Every setback will be a chance to grow. We're in this together." The words felt better coming out loud, grounding him. The room began to shift. Investor faces were still guarded, but there was flicker something was changing. The older man, once critical, now rubbed his chin, deep in thought. He scanned the room, gauging his audience. "And if you succeed?" The woman spoke up again, her skepticism softer now, almost curious. "What does success look like for you?" Her question hung in the air, inviting him to dream bigger. Hiroshi took a breath, feeling the weight of his own aspirations rise within him. "Success means transforming our community," he said slowly, emphasizing each word. "Creating jobs that empower individuals, inspiring young engineers to dream without limits. It means more than profits. It means building a legacy." He looked around, meeting their gazes, searching for understanding. "Imagine a young girl in our neighborhood designing the next generation of vehicles, or a boy dreaming of running his own workshop. That's what we're building." Aiko's eyes sparkled, and he noticed her shift closer, leaning into his words as if they were a lifeline. "You speak as if you've already won," the older investor said, a hint of admiration breaking through his measured tone. "But back to the community aspect, how do you plan to implement this?" Hiroshi felt the tide turning. He could sense eagerness blooming in the room, like flowers bursting through the last frost of winter. "We start small, with workshops in schools, inviting students to learn from experts. We host community events, celebrate innovation, and create spaces where ideas can flow freely, where every voice matters." The investors conferred quietly among themselves, murmurs of potential and promises weaving through their conversation. Hiroshi's heart raced with hope. Yet, the critic spoke up again. What if there's pushback? Not everyone will support such bold changes. Change is never easy, Hiroshi replied, determination lacing his words. But I believe in the resilience of our community. We can forge connections, create partnerships with local businesses. People want to feel involved. If we nurture that desire, we stand a better chance. Aiko smiled, and Hiroshi felt a buoyant lightness. The moment was electric, filled with a mix of fear and excitement. I think we might be ready to discuss potential backing, the older man finally said. Let us set up a follow-up meeting next week. Hiroshi's heart leapt. This was his chance. Maybe they were seeing what he saw. They wrapped up the meeting. Burning energy still lingered in the air. Investors stood and exchanged addresses, promises made through shared glances. Conversations flowed, voices overlapping in excitement. But as Hiroshi stepped towards the exit, an unsettling thought clawed at him. What if this was just the surface? What if the deeper waters held unforeseen dangers? He glanced at Aiko, who caught his worried gaze. What's next? What if they don't follow through? She asked, her voice low, the weight of reality creeping back in. Then we fight harder, he replied, but his voice wavered just a bit. The possibilities and dangers loomed like the shadows of the city skyscrapers outside. Hiroshi felt exhilarated but scared. Everything felt on the brink of something extraordinary, yet it could just as easily fall apart. With uncertainty rippling through him, he faced the future, one question forefront in his mind. What would they need to overcome the odds? As they stepped back into the world outside, illuminated by early evening light, he knew one thing for sure: the real journey was just beginning. The days flew by, a whirlwind of meetings, plans, and emotions, but none compared to the moment Hiroshi and Aiko stood in the location that would become their first workshop. The space was modest, a small garage on the edge of town, but it symbolized everything they had fought for. The tall shelves, lined with tools and parts, glimmered under the fluorescent lights. Each corner of the room echoed with possibility, each wall painted with dreams yet to bloom. Hiroshi turned to Aiko, his heart swelling with pride and anxiety. This is it. Can you believe it? She grinned, her excitement infectious. This is just the beginning, Hiroshi. We'll make it come alive. They had spent countless nights planning and coordinating with local businesses. Now, they were finally ready to launch their community workshops. It was more than just a space. It was a haven for creativity, exploration, and connection. It was time to transform their dreams into something real together. On the grand opening day, the breeze that blew through the open doors carried a sense of hope. The local community gathered outside, faces bright with curiosity and enthusiasm. Friends, families, and even some former skeptics showed up, drawn by the passion Hiroshi and Aiko had ignited. Hiroshi took a deep breath, nerves coiling in his stomach as he approached the makeshift stage. He could see the crowd before him, so many faces that held stories, dreams, and aspirations of their own. Thank you all for coming, he started, his voice steadying with every word. We're here to build something together. Not just motorcycles, but a community, a place where every dream is welcome, where every failure is a step toward success. Aiko stood next to him, a supportive light. We want you to learn, create, and inspire. This workshop is for you, he continued, sharing his own journey, the struggles and victories that had led him to this point. As he spoke about resilience, courage, and the power of following one's dream, he could see the spark of inspiration flickering in the crowd's eyes. Together we will build bikes, yes, but more importantly, we will build bonds. We are a family here. As he finished his speech, the crowd erupted in applause, clapping and cheering, and tears welled in Hiroshi's eyes. This was not just his victory. It was a collective triumph. As people filed into the workshop, laughter and excited chatter filled the air. Children rushed to the shiny motorcycles, hands outstretched in curiosity, while parents chatted enthusiastically about the prospect of their children learning skills that would ignite their dreams. Hiroshi caught Aiko's eye, and they shared a moment of mutual understanding, a silent acknowledgement of everything they had overcome. This dream was no longer just Hiroshi's. It was theirs, and now it belonged to everyone gathered here. Days turned into weeks, and with each workshop, they watched the community thrive. Young minds eager to learn, hands working together, creating not just machines but memories and friendships. They were crafting stories that spanned generations. But with growth came challenges. One evening, as Hiroshi was cleaning up after a workshop, he felt a familiar tightness in his chest, fear creeping in. What if the funding fell through? What if they couldn't keep this dream alive? Aiko entered, sensing the shift in his mood. What's wrong? He met her gaze, the weight of doubt fresh in his mind. What if we can't sustain this? What if she stepped closer, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder? Do you remember why we started? This isn't just about business. It's about impacting lives. Even if we face challenges, we can adapt and grow. Her words ignited the fire within him once more. He smiled, feeling buoyed by her belief. You're right. We'll figure it out together. The weeks pressed on, filled with challenges, yet they navigated each twist and turn as a team. They reached out to local organizations, gaining support, and every person they inspired became another thread in the rich tapestry of their shared dream. One fateful day, as they hosted a special event unveiling their first motorcycle prototype, a sleek, impressive machine that told the story of their journey. Hiroshi stood in front of the crowd with Aiko beside him. "This is our dream come to life," he shouted, excitement electrifying the air. "It's not just a motorcycle. It's a symbol of hope, resilience, and unity." The applause was thunderous, and he felt pride swell within him, radiating out into the crowd. They had begun this journey with a singular vision, and now it was a thriving community of creators and innovators. As the sun set, painting the sky with hues of gold and pink, Hiroshi realized he had not only found respect, he had built something far greater, a family and a community. Each face that looked back at him reflected the heart of what they had created together. With emotion lingering in the air, he whispered, "Thank you. For believing. For dreaming. We're just getting started." The evening drew to a close, but Hiroshi knew deep down this was only the first chapter of a beautiful story still waiting to unfold. And as he stood there, it dawned upon him. He had transformed from that boy weighed down by doubt into a leader driving his community forward, charting a course toward hope and a brighter future. It was time to continue this journey with vigor, not just for himself but for everyone who dared to dream. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep this community growing. Comment your thoughts and feelings about this incredible journey. Your voice deserves to be heard. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through your actions. Let us keep building dreams together.